The Prime Minister, meantime, he's talking about a climate technology target, apparently, according to The Australian. Let's go to our political editor, Andrew Clennell. Andrew, the thing is, the Prime Minister did commit, didn't he, to the Pacific Island leaders that he would look at a net zero emissions target by 2050. Is that something he's looking at?
Well, he's looking at it, but I think as the days go on, Kieran, it's quite clear that the government won't be adopting that zero net emissions by 2050 target. And we've seen that in terms of the comments by Matt Canavan and Michael McCormack on Sunday and Scott Morrison in the last 2 days. There's very little enthusiasm for that target. However, to deliver on his promise to the Pacific Islands Forum, the Prime Minister is commissioning the Emissions Reduction Minister, Angus Taylor, and his department to look at the potential cost of such a target. But let's assume that Scott Morrison does not go ahead with that target, and there's been this report about a technology target. I've been told that's not quite right, but the government will look to have a technology roadmap, not a technology target as such. If that occurs, the target does not occur, Anthony Albanese's made it clear in an interview with us in January that he is looking at a long-term target. And climate change spokesman Mark Butler, it's been put to me, has been in shadow cabinet incessantly talking about that zero net emissions target by 2050. So that looks like a likely target for Labor. Some in shadow cabinet are concerned about a pathway for justifying that target, how you can actually show it's achievable. Let's hear what Anthony Albanese said to us in January. Surely your target will be greater than theirs. Well, otherwise, what's the point of all the rhetoric?
We'll make the announcement, and I would be I'm trying to be generous to them. Hopefully, they'll wake up tomorrow and go, there could be something in this climate change thing, and take action. I don't want to let them off the hook, but we will have a very strong position on climate change. One of the things that we're likely to do is to announce a longer-term target before we announce, because by definition,
2050,
you're able
zero
to
net
do
emissions,
that.
2050.
Well, we'll wait and we'll make our announcements at an appropriate time, but you can make those longer-term announcements before you then make announcements that are impacted by what's happening right now.
So you can see how it's shaping here, Kieran. Almost a carbon copy of the last election campaign. The coalition doesn't have a longer-term target. Labor does have a longer-term target. And the coalition are then able to come up with a range of scenarios through this report Angus Taylor's doing on what that would do to the economy. From the Labor point of view, though, they've spoken to me about the potential for this long-term target today, and they are thinking they can actually wedge the government in the other direction. There's people in Labor are sort of saying to me, state Liberal governments are adopting targets, zero net emissions 2050, and they could argue the Prime Minister does not even have a policy on the issue. Another element in all this was it's been correctly reported that last year Liberal Federal Director Andrew Hurst addressed the Cabinet and told them not to discount climate change as an issue in voters' minds. And it wasn't fair to say that the election was a referendum on climate change. Issues like tax played a far bigger role, the shortened tax promises, than the climate change issue.
Our emissions reduction targets we're meeting. In fact, we're going to meet them by more than 411 million tonnes this year. Now, that is about 80% of our annual emissions. That's how much we're going to beat this year's target by. So, you know, when you look at the facts, what you can see is Australia's leading the world on renewable technologies.
And that was the Prime Minister yesterday talking about how we're not just meeting but very much beating our targets. But let's have a look at how he gets that 411 million tonne figure if we can. That is based on the carryover credits. So there are around 283 million tonnes that Australia is ahead, not 411. The rest is from the carryover credits, using past performance in order to justify the current situation in terms of meeting our targets. The same is to be said for the 2030 target. We're to reduce emissions by 26% from 2005 levels. So to achieve Australia's 2030 target of 26 to 28%, emissions reductions of 395 to 462 CO2, megatonnes of CO2 are required, but the carryover credits give us a substantial proportion of that, and that's how we get there. So probably needs to explain the whole scenario here, the Prime Minister, that it's not just reducing emissions that's getting there, it's past performance, and Australia's lobbying for the carryover credits to be counted, including in Madrid last year. Let's look at what the PM said about this zero net emissions target and how he's poured cold water on it today and yesterday.
Anything we sign up to will be signed up to if we were to go down that path, having thoroughly looked at what is the impact on jobs, what is the impact on electricity prices, what is the impact on rural and regional Australia. And currently, no one can tell me that going down that path won't cost jobs, won't put up your electricity prices and won't impact negatively on jobs and the economies of rural and regional Australia.